All right, all right. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, welcome in. Welcome to Tavern Talk, and a podcast about gaming for gamers by gamers. My name is Sarge. With me today is the infamous, the notorious, the man wanted in 5 countries and 10 states for drive-by feet flashing. Ladies, put your hands together for Warhammer Actual. How are you today, brother?
What's going on, man? I'm good. I'm good. Man, that was an introduction.
Oh man, it's our first episode, brother.
Yes. Hopefully one of many.
Yeah, yeah.
How about yourself? How are you
All
doing
right.
today?
So, what's that?
I said how about you? How are you doing today?
Mikey's like, good luck living up to that intro,
Yeah,
boy.
right. I'm never gonna live up to that intro, dude.
Oh man, I'm still breathing, so I mean, it's I'm blessed today. It's a good day, you know. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Been thinking about putting it, how to put it all together, and I'm so happy that you decided to go through and do this with me. You know, I think between you and I, we ought to be able to make a good show. I
Yeah,
really do.
yeah, man. I appreciate the opportunity and thank you for approaching me with affording me that opportunity. I think I'm really going to enjoy this.
I wouldn't want anybody else with me, brother. This is our show. Speaking of show, today is because it's our first inaugural show. We're going to keep it a little bit light. The main topic for today is gaming and streaming in 2024. Um, Games have come a long way. You know, streaming, has come a long way. So, brother, what got you into gaming, and when did you start go through and game?
Oh wow. Okay, so I think the very first video game I ever played was over my next door neighbor's house, and it was literally Pong. So if anybody's not familiar with it, it was a black screen on your TV, and it had like black and white two bars that would go up and down. You'd hit a ball
Mm-hmm.
back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first introduction to video games. After that, I think I really started playing video games probably in 1980. With my parents got me an Atari 2600 for Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Yeah.
think the first game I actually played was Space Invaders
Oh yeah. Yeah, I
on
remember
the
that.
on the 2600.
Yeah. When
So
did you go through and start on PC games?
PC probably. Oh man, would have to be in the early 90s. I don't even
Yeah.
remember the first game because honestly, before PC, I was playing on the original PlayStation. So I
Mm-hmm.
had an Atari
Mm-hmm.
2600, then I had a Commodore VIC 20, Commodore 64, and played.
Yep.
They weren't really video games; they were kind of like choose your own adventure books where they were text games.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I segued onto the first PlayStation, and then from the PlayStation over to PC. So it would have probably been in the early 1990s.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Now
about
my
yourself?
the first platform that I played on was, yeah, it was the Atari 2600, and that came out in 1982. So I mean, that's kind of dating me. It's still hard for me to go through and say to people that I was alive before the internet. Um, but uh, it, but the first game that I played was Breakout, which was basically the same thing as Pong. You had bars up top, that blocks up top, and you had your side things, and you had to take this little ball and break them out. That was the first one. Was the Atari 2600. As far as computers, I remember playing on a Commodore 64 back in 1982. And the game I remember the most playing was Oregon Trail.
Okay,
I constantly freaking died to dysentery, dude.
right.
I go out and kill a buffalo, and I was like, okay, I'm doing good, and come back, and you have died of dysentery. It's like, son of a-" But games have definitely came a long way since then. I mean, they really have. They really have. What's the what's the genre? Nowadays, what's the genre that you like to play the most?
So for me, it's kind of like a myriad of things, and it depends on what I'm looking for and the mood I'm in, right? So I remember when I was a lot busier in life, work
Mhm.
would be pretty intensive, so I'd come home and I'd want something light. So I'd
Yeah.
play a lot of like Battlefield, right? So Battlefield 3, the Call of Duties, a game I could just log in by myself, get a lot of actions per minute, get
Mhm.
a lot of games in, and then just turn it off when I wanted. So
Right.
I predominantly was a console player in the early 2000s.
Mhm.
Um, so
Mhm.
I guess it would be first person shooters. I really didn't get into RPGs too much. I did play Elder Scrolls Oblivion on the Xbox 360. Um, so, and then online kicked off. I remember playing the PlayStation 2 with the game SOCOM, if you remember that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it was kind of for
Used to come
me,
with a headset, right?
yes, it was for me, it was the
Yeah.
game that it came with a headset, and it was revolutionary because before that, you basically text typed to everybody. Hey,
Yeah.
welcome, Nacho. So I played a lot of that with coworkers and friends, and that was kind of my first online multiplayer experience, if you will. And that was a lot
Yeah.
of fun because the group composition were people I knew, and it was kind of like friends and neighbors grouped up playing against friends and neighbors.
Yeah. 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 Um. So do you prefer more single player or do you prefer more MMO?
No, so now I prefer more multiplayer games. I still play a single player game now and again, but for me, I kind of like the engagement and interaction with other people. I think
Mhm.
that's I think that's kind of what drives me the most is having fun and laughing with other individuals instead of just playing a game by myself. Now,
Mhm.
that doesn't take away from the Skyrims, the Fallouts. Those are
Mm.
hugely enjoyable, but also
Oh yeah.
I like to flesh it out and get a experience of other individuals, how they perceive the game and how we interact with the game too.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved I love playing Elder Scrolls. I mean, I really did Skyrim. Going through all of that. Elder Scrolls is by far one of my favorite games to have ever played. Yeah, I mean uh it was a solo game. You can kind of somewhat team up with NPCs and stuff like that, but there wasn't a lot of MMO styling. Until later on. Then they went Elder Scrolls Online. All right, but yeah, Skyrim and Elder Scrolls was probably my favorite game, of all time. I still have it. I still play it on occasion. Of course, I don't stream it or anything like that, but I still play it on occasion. I still have PlayStation 2 or 3. Some one that comes black. It's about this big. It's not the big circle one, that to where you have. I know it's not 4, and I think we're at five's coming out here soon, or 6, or whatever it is. But yeah, I still have that old original console and a lot of those games. But do you remember back when we were kids, you know, on those Ataris,
Hmm.
having to go through to take every time you go through and push it in there, it wouldn't work. Take it out and
Yeah, yeah, right.
you know, and then all of a sudden it would magically work.
Yeah, it's
Like,
bizarre. The
yeah,
secret
man, it's
sauce
just
of canned air was you blowing into the cartridge. Do you remember the
uh,
joystick? How it was? I'm hitting my microphone here, but the joystick was literally like this,
mhm.
and you had to
There
push the
was an
button.
old game. Yeah,
And
there was an old game, and I swear I still have the scarring in the center of my hand. It was called Decathlon for Atari. All right, and you had that joystick, and you had to hold that joystick, and you had to go like this to go through and run. running sprints and stuff like that, and push the buttons to go over hurdles. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it was Space Invaders, Pac-Man, Pitfall.
Yeah.
Uh, I think there was Van Zaxxon, if you remember, that came out on
Mhm,
ColecoVision. My neighbor
mhm,
had
mhm,
ColecoVision, so I would go over his house
mhm,
and play it.
mhm.
Um, well, I'm trying to think of other titles, man. It's been so long. Donkey Kong, but and then my
Mhm.
parents also
The
got me.
classics, yeah.
My parents got me a Vectrex. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, what is that?
So a Vectrex was it was a self-contained system. It came with its own, I think it was like a CRT monitor, right? It was just monocolored. It was
Mhm,
one screen, and it was green with a like a lime green. And it came with its own cartridges and came with its own wired controller, and it was like a one unit system that you could carry it around with you. It was like the original console before consoles were even a thing. Hey, welcome in,
mm,
Punk. Welcome in, everybody.
okay.
Um, so I would swap between all of those different systems. Um, but my main system was the Atari 2600, but then ColecoVision came out. That was a competitor, and I think there was even another console in television
Mhm,
that had a brief time in the limelight. And then my parents, when my sister was getting older, my parents bought her the original Nintendo, so we played a lot of Donkey Kong on that.
right.
um, and Super Mario Brothers, stuff like that. But then as I got older, I didn't get into PC gaming seriously probably until 2005,
Mhm,
2006. And
mhm,
I
mhm.
guess this is a good segue into MMOs. So that was my first introduction to an MMO genre. I had never played any other MMO previous to that, and
Right.
the only thing that got me into it were two of my coworkers. They were big EverQuest players. So
Yep, yep, I remember that game.
and the first game they introduced me to was Dungeons and Dragons Online, actually, and I started playing that in
Hmm,
2006.
okay.
How about you?
Um, I prefer I prefer MMOs generally. Uh, I mean, I've been playing a lot of different MMOs over the year, predominantly. Uh, I started, World of Warcraft came out in 2004. I started playing in Burning Crusade, which came out in 2007, and I've been playing World of Warcraft pretty much on and off ever since then. Um, the game that I played just before that was a online PvP game called Shadowbane,
Oh,
which
I remember
go
that
ahead.
game. I remember going into. Do you remember when you would go to the like Circuit City and they would sell video games in boxes and you'd have to buy the disc?
Hmm.
I remember seeing
Yeah.
the cover art for Shadowbane. Don't tell me you still have the box for Shadowbane. Oh my yes, that's right, the Minotaur. Yes, I
Yep.
remember that. Yep, that's
Yep.
wild.
So I mean, it was guild on guild warfare. Individual. It was probably one of the first games that definitively brought MMO PvP to to the world. All right. I won't say it was the main one that started it, but it was one of the founders, in my opinion. I mean, at one time, I mean, there was over a million people playing it. But as with games go through, they end up going through and they run their course. Um, but you have what I call legacy games. Legacy games that have been around forever. Like World of Warcraft since 2004, Dungeons and Dragons Online since 2006 by Turbine. In 2016 that was taken over by Standing Stone Games. You have Final Fantasy, which came out in 1987. All right, so you have your legacy games that people are going through that are still extremely loyal to them. You know, and that kind of segues way into my next question is it's 2024. We are running Nowadays, we're running Unreal Engine 5. We've got 3D graphics. We've got, virtual reality that's coming out. These games that have been around forever, such as the World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, stuff like that. What is it that you think, in your opinion, that is going through and keeping such a loyal fan base after 18 to 20 years?
So I definitely want to answer that. And if I may, just to piggyback off of Shadowbane, do you remember Dark Age of Camelot?
Yes.
It came out in like 2001. So that was,
Yeah.
PvP, realm versus realm, where you engage in castle siege as well. I remember that was huge. I think that came,
Mhm.
I don't know if that came out before Shadowbane or on the heels of it. I'm going to look that up real quick. I'm just curious of the timetable here, which came first. Okay, so Dark Age of Camelot preceded Shadowbane. So
Right.
yeah, so what I think it is about the MMO genre is I think it's a gameplay style that you can't get in other titles. It's not a first person shooter. Um it's I think part of it is the allure of the gearing aspect where you go out and you get gear drops so you get that, that dopamine bump from that type of game. But I think ultimately it's a game more so where you have competitive and cooperative play, and those lend more into your successes or failures from
Mhm.
cooperating with each other. I mean, the same can be said for a first person shooter, but I don't think you see the the tangible results as readily as you do in an MMO, right? Whether it be
Right.
in a PvP environment where it's my group against your group. That's kind of similar, I guess, to a first person shooter, but also you have, questing in the raiding environment where if you come up against challenges or difficult bosses that you can't beat on your own, you're kind of using your party to achieve that collective group goal. And I think
I get that.
a lot of games you're just not getting that experience from. You're definitely not getting it from a single player game. You're definitely not getting it from your first person shooters, although those games are great and they provide huge amounts of enjoyment. I think that the MMO genre just is something extra that you're not getting from other type of genres.
I have a tendency to agree with you. I think most of what really draws people to the MMO, um, the MMO genre is the again the ability to go through and play with your friends. Um, I have friends, that I call family now that I started playing. I didn't know them when I first started, but I started playing back in Shadowbane with, and he's actually playing Dungeons and Dragons with me now. You guys go through, and I talk about my brother. Well, this is the guy. He's not technically blood to me, but I've been playing games with him since Shadowbane. So you go through and you build up these relationships with people. All right. And having the capability of playing with your friends who you associate with, who you get along with, who you have fun with, it's definitively a lot better than sitting in, yeah, like Modern Warfare 3. Yes, you can get with your friends and you can go out and you can kill people and all that kind of stuff. But MMOs are far more um group specific. Yes, you can go through and play Dungeons and Dragons Online, a Final Fantasy, and World of Warcraft. You can play those solo, but you're not going to go through and get the full experience that you would be able to with an MMO. But also playing devil's advocate there, you know, with the rise of MMOs has also gone through and has flooded the gaming industry with a lot of hate as well. All right, there's a lot of people that you can get into an MMO and like I'll use World of Warcraft for an example, or even going through and playing with random people on Modern Warfare. You know, you'll go through and you die, and you suck. delete your account, go
Yeah,
away,
right.
you know? So I think there's a lot of positives and a lot of negatives that have come out with MMOs. Um, but far more, it's being able to go through and play with your friends. I agree with you 100%. I think that's one of the main draws, and I think that's why a lot of the legacy games, I call them legacy games, are able to continue to keep going. But on the other hand, you've got a lot of MMOs that are going through and trying to get started, that have modern day graphics, like Ashes of Creation from Intrepid Studios. It's been an alpha for 2 years now. It's been, when it first started going through, it's like everybody was like, yeah, this is going to be an awesome game. This is going to be the next World of Warcraft. It's got, Unreal Engine 5 graphics and stuff like that. It's never been able to kick off the ground. It's still an alpha. It's been an alpha for like 2.5 years now. The
Yeah.
other one is Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen by Visionary Realms. So what is it about these legacy games versus the new MMOs that is able to go through? I mean, you've got MMOs like the legacy MMOs like World of Warcraft. It's got a new expansion coming out August 26th, The World Within. All right, you've got Dungeons and Dragons Online that's coming out with the Magic of Myth Genor July 31st this month. And Final Fantasy, again, another legacy game that, as of yesterday, went through. Final Fantasy 14. They released Dawn Trail. What is it about these legacy games versus the new games coming out that is able to keep people coming? And why is it that the new MMOs nowadays just are not able to go through and kick off?
Yeah. So you brought up a lot of points, and I'd like to unpack that kind of point by point if we can. And
Sure.
and also one of my chatters just brought up. They said you'll build meaningful relationships with an MMO, and I couldn't agree more.
I
Um,
agree.
I have
100%.
some a story about meaningful relationships in MMOs, and it actually pertains to Dungeons and Dragons Online, which I'll get into in a
Hmm.
minute. Actually, I'll just get into it now. So DDO started playing in 2006, played till the middle of 2009, had an amazing guild. That guild actually spoiled me and ruined me for the rest of my MMO experiences, if you will, because the people were amazing. I used to talk to so many of my guildies on the phone, through texting, just outside of the game, got to know them, and
Right.
Facebook, and still know them to this day, 18 years later. And what's funny is the guild is still together to this day with a bulk of the same people that have been playing that game for 18 years. Even though I
Hmm.
had moved on after 2009, those people
Hmm.
still continued to play together. They still had their static group. Um,
Hmm.
and I can't agree more with nostalgia, Steve. You will make connections, I think, that you can have a bond throughout your entire gaming lifespan, if you will. And that was one thing that when I played with people, I said, hey, listen, let's just keep in touch, right? Because it doesn't matter what genre we play, you still have spent a lot of time with each other. People, the most precious commodity we all have in life, it is time, right? And
Hmm. I
that's
agree.
a scientific invariant across all walks of life. Everybody's time is precious. And if you're
Yep.
spending so much time with people in these games, me personally, I don't see people as disposable, right? If you're not playing the game that I'm playing, I don't have time for you. That doesn't matter. I don't care. Cross genre, I would still keep in contact with people. I still keep in contact people with
Hmm.
games that I have stopped playing years ago. But to segue back into what you said about like COD lobbies are like memes, right? Of how ruthless
Hmm.
people can be. But I
Hmm.
think that what happens with that is because there's not that level of cooperative necessity like in an MMO. I think people don't allow themselves those connections to occur, right? People in those titles, they hop on, they play for an hour,
Right.
they're very transactional. Um, the only time that I've ever kind of gotten people to message me or want to play with me more in like COD or Battlefield is if I was top of the leaderboard in the kill count. That's what they cared about,
Right.
right? They didn't care about I was cool to talk to, or they didn't care about anything that I had to say or my opinion. They were just like, hey, can this dude get, Can he drop a 30 bomb in the lobby and we
Hmm.
get the highest score?
Hmm.
Right. So I think mindset is different. And to piggyback what we had said earlier, I think that's what differs in MMO. I think people aren't as transactional. I mean, people are always transactional, but I think people look for depth out of their co-players in an MMO versus in like a shooter game where people just want high kill counts and they want people that are going to decimate and dominate the board.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
so
everybody's got a desire to go through and win, but you don't need to be going through and winning at the cost of somebody else.
yeah,
I
no,
agree with you.
precisely, exactly. Like to me, the real W comes in it for something like this, right? I met you through streaming and video games, and then we're having a conversation, right? That's to me, that's not transactional. It's like as you get older in life, it's harder and harder to find people unless you seek it out. But it becomes harder and harder to find people that enjoy the same passions as you or the same hobbies, especially if you
Right.
have certain social circles that are centered around the nucleus of your profession, right? Because certain
Hmm.
professions, you know, like for example, a dude that I used to play DDO with, he was a pediatrician. How many
Hmm.
fellow pediatricians are going to be playing Dungeons and Dragons online, right? So he
Hmm.
was afforded through that vehicle, the game, he was afforded to meet people from other walks of life, right? People that you would probably not interact with normally through your regular channels, which is
Right.
which to me is great. It enriches you.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a streamer that I go through and I watch. She's actually gone through. Uh, she just got her medical degree. She's a pediatrician, and she's going back to school. I'm not 100% clear. She just got her pediatrician. All right. Now she has to go back to school again to go through to get um, more focalization
Mm-hmm.
in that particular field. All right. Whether it be ear, nose, and throat, whatever the case may be, instead of it just being a general pediatrician, she's going through and getting more specialized. But uh, generally, I mean, those kind of people, I'm retired, so I mean, I don't get to go out often and talk to people and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm an introvert, so it's gaming has been 100%. I think a saving grace for all of the introverts that are out there. All right, because it gives them an opportunity to go through and meet people without actually having to meet them. Eventually the relationships go through and blossom and whatever the case may be. And then you have the other cases like perfect example, Deathy TV. He met his fiance. They are getting married now. Uh, Deathy TV is a streamer. He streams a lot of Dungeons and Dragons online, and he met his fiance through gaming. So MMOs give a lot of opportunity to go through and build a lot of relationships. I agree with you. I agree with you. Um, but again, going through and playing devil's advocate, it's just there's also a lot of negativity that could come from it as well. I mean, you know, there's there's the addiction factor, obviously, to where people will go through and get addicted to going and playing online to get to go through and be world first at this, or to be to get silver or platinum, whatever the case may be, for your kill counts, and they do nothing else. They don't take care of themselves. They end up losing jobs and all that kind of stuff. Do you think there's a way that the industry itself can be regulated when it comes to like for example in streaming? You've got a lot of people that'll go through and stream, and they'll get hate on their stream, or they'll get hate in a game. You think there's a way that the industry itself could go through and regulate it without going and really spoiling the gameplay for everybody else?
I don't know. I don't know if it's something that could be done from the developer side or the industry per se. I think it's an internet problem, right? I think that people online, they are afforded the luxury of anonymity, right? It's easy for me to talk, you know, slanders or talk smack behind a keyboard if you're not face to face, right? People have those certain social filters or behavioral filters completely, in most cases, removed, right? They'll do or
Hmm.
say anything, whether it's
Hmm.
in tweets or whether it's a post on a video. And predominantly, I think people online are far more negative than they would be in person. People are also amazing online too, right? But I
Yeah.
think if you're human nature is if you're afforded, the opportunity to come out of your shell or do and say things without any real consequences, that
Hmm.
people, I don't know if the word empowered is the correct word, but I think people may lean into that, especially younger people, more so than, obviously if you were doing a couch co-op, right? If you're talking shit to me and we're playing a game on the couch and I could just turn over and take an immediate corrective action against your
Hmm.
against your behaviors, that then you're going to apply your own brakes and your own filters. But removing those wheel blocks online, I think you it kind of runs the whole spectrum. You are seeing, it's funny you say that, because you are seeing that now, that I know in Xbox on the home screen now, there's a thing where you can actually report inappropriate behavior or inappropriate comments while you're in an Xbox party, which
Hmm.
is, it's, I don't want to go so far as to use buzzwords like censorship, but I think it's good that Xbox per se, and I hate using, you know, buzzwords, but creating as trying to create a safer space for people to play, because it is important, because
Hmm.
um you have children and young adults that play these, right? You never know who's getting into that party lobby or the audio feed. So I think
Right.
I commend Xbox on that, and they have been banning people and limiting their ability to play with others online if they violate some of the rules. So
I
I think
agree.
that's a
I
step in
agree.
the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think a lot of the gaming industries, like prime example, World of Warcraft. I know you can go through and you can report people. I think the developers are going through and attempting to go through and help alleviate those issues, because I know you could go through one, you can block people. All right, you could go through and report people, and I know that there are people that uh at Blizzard Entertainment that go through and handle those kind of complaints. And I've seen over the years, I've seen in multiple MMOs, I've seen people go through and get banned for harassment or whatever the case may be. Um, I've also heard of cases to where you've got the extreme, uh, to where, due to harassment and stuff like that, people have quit gaming, have quit streaming. Even as God forbid, gotten to the extreme, have it has affected their life personally, and they have gone to extreme measures. And I've heard of court cases and stuff like that, to where parents are going through trying to go through and sue game developers and companies like that for not policing the bad attitudes or the harassment. Um, it's it's rampant no matter where you're at. I mean, there's a lot of games nowadays that have gone through and have cleared out a lot of it, to where there's not a lot of that. But it's not an easy, an easy fix across the board.
No, and
You know.
it's actually funny that you brought up World of Warcraft, and that they monitor their chat, because I'll give you a real world story real quick. I don't think I've ever discussed with you what I did for my career, but I remember one time I got a call, and we got
Hmm.
dispatched from the FBI and they said, "Hey, we got a report of, we'll send you the text document from this chat that occurred in World of Warcraft. We need you to go to
Right.
this residence and conduct an investigation." Right. So I remember going to this, and what it was is this kid was talking shit and WoW, and had mentioned, something horrific. He had mentioned something about, oh, I'm gonna if we don't win this event, I'm gonna go shoot up a school, right? So the WoW
Oh,
moderators filtered that chat, contacted the
yeah.
FBI, and then they contacted the local municipality to go out and conduct an investigation. I remember going to the person's house, and the kid was shocked, right? And I'm like, this is very serious. It's not a joke. But that was early mid 2000s, right? So,
Yeah.
and I think there needs to
Mhm.
be more of that, even though, this kid was just being a kid, right? It ended up, it wasn't a credible threat, but at the same time too, it does need to be monitored. It can't be a free for all, right? And I think
Right.
any type of social engagement media needs to be regulated. We need regulation. Yeah, we have freedom of speech and all that, but at the same time too, speech can't be hateful. I mean, speech shouldn't be alarming to the point where, people you're altering behaviors, or people are afraid to leave their
Right.
house. I mean, you see it all the time where people I saw it just the other day in a feed. Somebody flew to Florida and assaulted somebody that they had a beef in about World of Warcraft. It's crazy. But
Hmm.
before we get too far into the weeds, to circle back to what you said about MMOs and development. So,
Hmm.
and why do people play legacy games? I think that's a that's a multifaceted subject matter. I think the reason why people play legacy games is a lot. If you notice, first off, the development cycles on these new MMOs are huge. They used to be what, 5 years? Now they're a decade,
Hmm.
right? And the MMO industry has been so saturated that if you don't knock it out of the park, you're going to flop, and they cost so much money. I think developers are afraid to take risks. That's why you see a lot of these MMOs, they parrot one another. The experience is very, very similar across the board with with some of the newer ones, like your New Worlds, your Elder Scrolls Online, and they're watered down to the point where you're on rails. Um, and they try to make it to a mass consumer market, right? They try to
Pay to win and stuff.
exactly, and they try to recoup the benefits of these exorbitant costs to produce. And I understand it, but at the same time, too, you can't be afraid to try new things. And so, like you said, Ashes of Creation. I remember there was one game, uh, Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, that was supposed to harken back to
By Visionary Realms. Yep.
yep,
By Visionary Realms. Yep.
supposed to harken back to the early 2000s of MMOs, the originals.
Hmm. Hmm.
The original EverQuest, where you didn't have quest markers or quest tracking that kind of auto pathed you to them. It's a tough balance, right? Because you said at the same time, if you're playing too much, like games like that, if they don't assist you and help funnel you to your quest objective, you could spend hours trying to navigate the gaming world. And a lot of people in today's day and age, they don't have a lot of liquid time, right? They don't have a lot of that, the commodity of, oh, I can play, it can take me 8 hours to run this quest. People need to, we have busier lives, I think. And I'm sure the same could be said for back then. People thought they had busy lives too, but
Yeah. I mean, to a point, I agree with you. But when you've got it, when you sit there and you've got an MMO that is so railed, is so on a rail that every single expansion they come out, okay, this is the zone that you're in. This is where you level for these 10 levels. You fight these dungeons. You fight these raid bosses. Then you sit there and wait for the next expansion. All
yeah,
right. I mean, World of Warcraft is a prime example of that.
it's
You
notorious for
know,
that. They are literally,
so
go ahead. Sorry.
you've got there's having the capability of going through and getting out of this linear mode to where this is the game, this is where you need to do and do A, B, C, and D. Then you have to sit there and wait 8 months to a year for another expansion. From a gamer's perspective, is it gets so repetitive. So as at some point to your point, is at some point going through and keeping them on a rail itself more detrimental?
I think so. I think that's why though. Like if you look at Steam charts and stuff, a lot of games are on that wheel, right? That content wheel. And I think that's why you see players nowadays are a lot more transitory than they used to be, right? And that's why I can circle back to Dungeons and Dragons Online. They have a very, if you want to take the global scale, right? They have a very small but fiercely loyal player base. And I think
Mhm.
what's different about them is they kind of break the mold of that content wheel, right? Because you can kind of approach that game any way you want. You can kind of go run dungeons, go run raids. It's not as on rails of your path.
Different zones you can do.
Exactly, right? Like
Right.
but they've Turbine back in those days, they did both hemispheres because I played their other game too, Lord of the Rings Online, which Lord of the Rings Online mirrored kind of the experience of World of Warcraft. So
Right.
to back to your point, I think a lot of the legacy games kind of have their own flair or their own flavor, not favor. I had favor on the brain. Their own flavor that kind of differs from your World of Warcrafts or your Final Fantasy 14s. But look at how successful World of Warcraft is, right? I think even now, I think they probably have 15 million players or something. So they got to be doing
Right.
something right. But I don't know.
Well,
It's a tough one because a lot of people have tried to replicate that formula, and there hasn't been a WoW killer to date.
right. I mean, utilizing your point for Dungeons and Dragons Online. I mean, that was one of the things that I play it, and that was one of the things that drew me to it was the capability of being able to go through and go to any zone, really, to be able to go through and level. There's different options that you can go through and do, but ultimately, if you look at Dungeons and Dragons Online, you still have a linear path, a bit looser, a heck of a lot looser. I got to sneeze coming.
Bless
Excuse
you.
me. A lot looser than than a World of Warcraft. You go to certain levels, you go to these to get this gear. Certain levels, you go to here. It's the same linear path, but it's a broad linear path. Whereas World of Warcraft, you've got this. Dungeons and Dragons Online, you've got this, but it's still basically the same thing. So is the best thing for these MMOs to go through and do is to have their own flair, but follow the same footprint, if you will, that these legacy games is that what's going to go through and make like Ashes of Creation or Pantheon that's going to make them successful, if they ever go through and release by going through and following that footprint. Is that the right thing to do? Because there's a lot of games that back to your point, there's a lot of games that are going through and being pay to play. All right. One of the things that um, a lot of MMOs are doing is the base game itself is free to play. Okay, but to get yes, you can go on a free to play and you can get all the way up to max level, max rep, and then there's a lot of stuff, a lot of content for you. But to get to all of the content, you got to pay for it.
Yeah. So
So is a baiting to pay, or excuse me, baiting to play a good model to go through?
so I guess it's like it's like your local drug dealer, right? Your first hit is free, and then get you hooked. But to at the same time to hit on that note, the subscription model too, it's kind of weird because it works for World of Warcraft, but I think that's kind of a model of the past. So I don't mind the free to play and let them make their money up in microtransactions if they're not egregious. We can get into that, but I want to segue back to something.
Wait, what do you mean as far as egregious?
Well, certain stores, right? They hide behind certain, I would say, inalienable features that should just be part of the game. They put behind a paywall, right? For case in point, trying to play DDO as a free play, as a free to play player, your bank space is limited, your bag space is limited, and they really, really push you towards opening up your wallet, right? Swiping to be able to, because in a game where you have so many unique items and so many clickies, people are going to become hoarders, right? Me personally, I try to lean that stuff out and not fall into the pitfalls of, oh, I got to have this much bank space, I got to have that much bag space. Like Elder Scrolls Online, if you become a VIP with them, they double your bank and bags. They double your bank space. Your bag, all your crafting materials, it's basically a bag of holding. It's unlimited, right? So that
Right.
that has more built-in value to me than, let's say, the DDO model that I think is a little bit more egregious because they want you to keep swiping to you get only get increments of bag or bank space, right? Instead of like a large chunk, like where in ESO for $15 a month, all crafting materials you can. It doesn't matter. It's to infinity. You can stack those. So
Right.
that's value, in my opinion, not as egregious. But to circle back to your previous point with MMOs or with any game, and you'll see this in the industry now, it's a tug of war back and forth. Is I think if you're developing a game, you have to really a know your audience, right? There's been what 25 years of
Mm-hmm.
data that you can parse to kind of see
Mm-hmm.
trends and kind of see where players are putting their time. So to me, it would be
You got to listen to your audience too.
exactly. And you have to define your target audience. Who is my target audience? If you're trying to appeal to everyone, then you're kind of really appealing to no one.
And that's not to interrupt you, but honestly, I think that's what a lot of what Final Fantasy does, and a lot of what DDO does is the developers and stuff. They actually really listen. They really do. They've got a hardcore league going on right now, an unofficial hardcore league, and you know that's not company sponsored or anything like that. The players put that together in DDO, and they've gotten with the community managers and the game developers and stuff like that, and have gotten rewards and all that to be able to go through to do this unofficial league. Whereas you've got World of Warcraft that they have a set that this is what they want to do, and they don't really listen to their people either. So I agree with you, but the developers have got to go through and listen, know their target audience, and they've got to listen to their audience.
yeah, well, if you see that with World of Warcraft, right, that a couple of expansions, they're not very well received. I think Battle for Azeroth was one. It wasn't very well received. The one after that, what was it? Shadowlands, not very
Mm-hmm.
well received. Dragonflight, kind of better received, but people are uh,
Mm-hmm.
really anticipating the War Within. It's kind of looking like it's gonna be a breath of fresh air for that title. But I think that happens. You can't be afraid to try new things, but the problem with trying new things is there's a huge monetary cost to that too, right?
Okay.
You can really lose a lot of revenue. And for example, Call of Duty. Call of Duty
Right.
doesn't really take risks anymore. It's pretty much the same format year after year. I think they did once with Advanced Warfare, where they try to make it more like Titanfall with wall running and stuff, and the game was
Mm-hmm.
terrible. Right? So now it's they if you're a Call of Duty player, hey, I'm going to get this experience every year. And they're just pumping those games out, right? So every year, you know, Activision knows it's going to make X amount of dollars because they've hit the right algorithm per se with their target audience and their players. Another game that does it very well, and it's not for everybody, is is the Souls like games, right? Like so, Dark Souls,
Right.
your Dark Souls, your Elden Rings. That's not a game. I guess Elden Ring they try to make it um, more palatable for uh, a more casual audience with the ability to like level up and kind of min max yourself. But that's still a very narrowly focused target audience. And even to this day, I saw the other day, 500,000 people were watching Elden Ring in Twitch. That game's 2 years old, and it's a single player game, and it's pushing the numbers on Twitch larger than any other online game. So what does that say for that? They know their identity and they're sticking to that formula. I think
Well, yeah, I agree with you. but I mean that's also going to segue, segue us into our next topic is with these games that are the legacy games that are going through and doing the same thing over and over and over, different graphics, different quests, all that kind of stuff, no matter what type of game it is. Segueing that into streaming, all right, from a streamer's perspective, how is it that you can go through knowing the fact that you're going to go out to, I mean, you've been streaming since 2021, okay? All right, you have streamed for over 260 hours, okay, since you went through and started streaming. I mean, you stream DDO, you stream Diablo, Guild Wars 2, Fallout. Wow. All right. So, as a streamer, knowing the fact that okay, we've got the Magic of Myth Genor coming out, we've got the War Within coming out. Knowing the fact that these developers are going to be going through and doing the same format with a different cover, so to speak, you as a streamer, how is it that you're going to be able to go through in such a saturated streaming market to make yourself stand out if all of the games are the same? No matter what you're doing, it's just the formats are the same across all games. It's just the packaging is different.
Yeah, so I guess I look at consumption from the standpoint of it's all subjective to the consumer, right? It's like when you go to Ben and Jerry's, they have what 50 something different flavors of ice cream. Um,
Mhm.
so not everybody's going to gravitate or appeal to everyone. You're gonna, again, same thing. You're gonna have a targeted audience. I think once you have an identity, you kind of have to just stick with that
Point.
identity, and people are gonna gravitate
Point.
towards you that find that identity, like they vibe with that identity, whether it be content or
Right.
whether it be the individual creator, right? I've watched people stream, and I kind of don't really like the game they're playing, but I enjoy them and I find them very, very entertaining, and it's an enjoyable experience. So I think then you have the flip side of that too, where you'll see people that will stream and they're either a VTuber or they don't have a camera, they don't really have that online persona, but their gameplay is amazing. So I guess it's what I'm looking for. If I want
True. I get it.
something that's very technically informative, I want somebody that's very knowledgeable about the subject matter, very knowledgeable about the game, and I want to draw from them like a resource. And then other times I'll watch a game, like let's like say Call of Duty, the Warzone, right? I just want to see, hey, how does this person get around the map? What do they look for, and how are they more effective at playing the game? I kind of don't really care about their commentaries most of the time. It all depends. So I think that fluctuates. And like you said,
Right.
the it's so saturated that it's just one of those things that it just takes time. A lot of so I You pulled up the streaming stats. A lot of that streaming was from my Xbox with no cam and no commentary. So I would just, if I was playing the game, I would just stream. And
Right.
I got no traction, right? No traction on my Twitch channel at all. Probably because I wasn't engaging with anybody who came in. And then secondly, maybe I wasn't good enough to find me interesting to actually
Point.
watch, right? So I wasn't good topping the
No, I
boards
enjoy
on,
watching.
yeah, calling
I
call
enjoy
the
watching your stream.
thanks. I wasn't really topping the boards on the Call of Duty on the Call of Duty genre compared to some of the other people. And that's another thing too. I stopped playing Call of Duty Warzone. I loved it, but the problem with that is so many people cheat, right? Free to play
Yeah.
game. They have, even on console, you have what do they call it? I forget what they call it, but it's a little cheat box that you can plug into your console, and you can just dominate and decimate. That's just, it's deflating.
Aimbot.
Yeah, it's deflating when you play games like that. And then on PC, people are using Cronus Zen. That's it, Steve. Yes, Cronus Zen. People use those, and I was just getting beasted on. I'm like, there's no way this person is just built that different that I can't compete, because I mean, you saw my
Yeah.
ESO PvP gameplay the other day. I do okay for a man of my age. um,
No, you do pretty good. But going talking to you about the add-ons and people cheating. They've got the esports leagues and stuff like that. They got people that are sitting there getting banned, from and getting paid. I mean, these are professional game players that are getting paid to travel all over the world, making thousands of dollars, and they're getting banned for cheating, like using aim bots and stuff like that.
yeah.
In streaming today.
So, and you said like streaming too, like a lot of the Twitch streamers, hands down, most of them they're playing Call of Duty. I'll just speak on Call of Duty. Most of them are cheating. They're using wall hacks, they're using aim bots, and it's for content, right? Like why would somebody want to go watch Warhammer Actual who's not using any cheats, who's like mediocre compared to this other dude on Twitch
Because of the feet.
that's like, yeah, because of the feet, that's beasting on everybody, right? And his gameplay just looks like next level, right? But they don't understand. Well, I'm sure they understand, but that person's using cheats to achieve that level of god tier
Yeah.
gameplay, right? And it does make for more engaging, Twitch channels. So, I mean, there is that too, right? So there's a reason why certain people. There's one Call of Duty streamer who has been accused of cheating, and they have like 2 million followers, right? It's because their gameplay, it's fast, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, but it's also not really humanly attainable unless you are using those cheats. And that's why that's why, when they go to like a COD event, and they're streaming it there, you're like, is this even the same they don't even look like the same person. When they're at the COD event or a LAN event, they're literally a bot. And when they get home and they're on their Twitch feed, they're a movement god. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes.
I didn't want to say the name, Steve, but you're 100% spot on.
I mean, that
Absolutely.
goes that goes that goes into followers. I mean, the big one of right now, the world's biggest streamer is Kai Cenat.
Yes.
All right, and he's got 11.7 million followers. And if you've ever watched his stream, he has developed his own persona, his own personality, his own style. All right. And I think a lot of new and upper now I haven't been streaming for very long, but I think a lot of new and up and coming streamers, that are trying to go through and break into it, uh they have a tendency to go through and just mimic other people. All right. They'll go out and they'll watch a particular streamer and it's like, okay, this is succeeding for them. I'm going to go through and duplicate this and do the same thing. But it doesn't work for them because people aren't stupid. They see that, hey, this other person was already doing this. Now this other person wants to go through and do it as well. So as a streamer, what is it that each individual could go through and do to set themselves apart from everybody else?
Honestly, so for me, through navigating the waters of life, what always has turned me off of anybody is the used car salesman approach, right? You ever go to a car lot and they just badger you, or they hound you, or they're like your best friend and you just met them 5 minutes ago? I think what's
Yeah,
important for anybody is just to be themselves. And let's
I agree.
just let's just say, if I don't want to use words like socially awkward or not confident, but I think if you do have traits that probably act as a little bit of a barrier or a speed bump, like, work on that. Use that as a personal project to improve yourself. um what I find most engaging about some people who stream is just how they come across, right? you don't have you don't have to have, certain, again, I guess it's your target audience, right? If you're doing an inflatable hot tub stream, right, you have a target audience. If you're doing
Ain't
it,
nobody want to see this in a
right,
bikini.
I mean, you'd be surprised. So, but you have a target audience, and lean into that audience, whatever, like, lean into that audience. I think you have to ask yourself, what's my target audience? Again, it's the same thing as what we said about the MMO. you're not going to appeal to everybody. It's, you know, you
Right.
might be, you know, whatever your demographic is, that person may either share the same demographic or interests, or they won't, and that's okay. The Twitch is a very big place. uh so I would say you lean into what you find interesting, what you're passionate about, because then when you're engaging in talking about that with others, that's going to come through and be self-evident when people are watching you. And usually
Right.
you're more knowledgeable and you're more passionate about the things that you find most enjoyable. So I think the other individuals who mirror your opinions will gravitate more towards your persona, and you'll get
Mhm.
more absorption, right, of your material. It's when you come on, and I think you try to take that used car salesman approach, you come off as disingenuous. And I think even online, people can see through that.
I agree. I agree.
So allow me to let this segue into, you mentioned you haven't been streaming long. When did you start streaming?
I've been streaming for about 2 months now. You know, I've never had the internet out in here in Oklahoma that had the capability to be able to go through and stream. I think my upload was point 0.7. You know, so there was just physically impossible to go through as far as my internet goes. Physically impossible to be able to go through and stream. So as soon as we went through and finally got fiber out here, I was like, you know what, why not? I enjoy gaming, and give me an opportunity to go through and start meeting new people. So I've been streaming for about 2 months now.
How do you like it?
I love it. I mean, based off of what you were saying and stuff like that. When I first started streaming, I was like, oh my god, I got to get a follow, I got to get a follow, I got to get a like, I got to get a sub, I've got to get this, I got to get that. All right, and it started driving me nuts. It really did. So I've got to stream, I've got to stream, I've got to stream, I got to stream. And it started to become stressful. And then I kind of just sat myself down, and it was like, this is not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Why I'm streaming is to meet people. Every single streamer out there wants to build a community. Everybody. Okay. I mean, if you don't want to build a community, you're doing streaming wrong. All right. But I want to go through. I wanted to go through and be able to meet people. All right. To be able to associate with people, because I don't get out a lot. I'm an introvert. I'm retired. So give me the opportunity to go through, such as yourself, meeting you, and meeting some of the great folks that I have met through Dungeons and Dragons Online, another game that I go through and play. And of course, now it's giving me the opportunity to go through and stream, World of Warcraft and stuff like that I can, and it's still getting to go through and meet new people. So now, I couldn't imagine actually playing a game and not streaming, just because of that interaction. So it's a night and day difference from when I first started. And again, I've only been streaming for about 2 months now, but it's a night and day difference from when I went through and originally started to go through and do, to where I am now. you know Not as far as follows or likes, or anything like that, but the general mindset, having somebody to come in and talk to, uh to being able to meet new people, like, we wouldn't be doing this podcast if I never started streaming. So I like it. I really do. There's a lot of lessons to be learned. There's a lot of growth to be had. Um, there is a lot of research that needs to be done. But generally, and when it comes to streaming, I enjoy it. I enjoy the camaraderie ship that I'm building, the friendships that I'm building, the interactions that I'm going through, and I'm building.
So what do you think your biggest motivator was, if you had to pick one?
Biggest motivator to start streaming?
Yes.
Well, my whole entire life, I've always served. All right, I served in the military. When I got out, I served firefighters. Yes, we were still selling fire trucks, but I was still serving the firefighters. and the first responders and stuff like that. And when I retired, I didn't have an outlet to be able to go through and serve. So my thing that I started to do was, I've always been an advocate for charities. I've always been, being a veteran myself, I've always been a big about finding a way to go through and help our veterans. So by going through and starting to stream, I got he's like, you know what, why don't I go through and start doing charity events and stuff like that to be able to help veterans or to help other charities. And it just kind of flowed together. So my biggest motivator to really start streaming initially was to do charities, to do charity work, to do charity streams to be able to give back to the community. So since that, I've kind of branched off more for for the motivation, and it's just to have fun, to be able to connect with people. You know, that's the biggest motivation for me.
Yeah, I
What about you?
remember.
It
I remember your charity stream. What was the name of that foundation that you were donating to?
was called Veterans Equine Therapeutic Services.
Yeah, and that was, I remember you that day, and it was very successful. You did an amazing job, and it really was shocking to learn that, hey, this guy had only been streaming for like a month and then puts on this event, and you had an amazing turnout and an amazing revenue generator too for that charity. That was pretty awesome of you.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've had two charity events for them, and combined total, I think we so far in 2 months, I was able to raise about $1,100 for them. And I went through and did all the charity, the on stream. Just for transparency, the next day I'd go through and live on stream, and I would do the donation, stuff like that. But I've been able to raise about $1,100 for that charity. And of course I am looking at doing some stuff for other charities as well. So yeah, it was successful. I mean, there's a lot of the communities that I'm involved in now that really stepped up to go through and participate and to come over and show support. And it's very humbling, the generousness of people. You don't hear it on the news nowadays. Nowadays it's always negative. But there's still a lot of a generous heart, especially within the communities that I run with most of the time now. Just how giving, and how much they care about each other, and they care about each other's streams, and how much they care about veterans and stuff like that. So it's definitely uplifting.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I remember seeing it, and you did such a great job with it.
I appreciate that.
And you have some planned in the future as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always working on things on the side, so I do plan on having another charity stream probably here within the next month. Um, I don't want to, I want to kind of spread the wealth, if you will. I mean, that's kind of a bad phrase to go through and say, but there's other charities out there that need help as well. There's other people that need help as well. So I am looking at doing different charities down the road. I'm always open to suggestions from communities and stuff like that. But you know ideally I'd like to be able to get to a point to where, I in about a year or so, that I'm able to do a charity a month. That's my goal.
That's admirable. That's 12 a year.
You
That's
know,
I think you could definitely help some people out, whether it be whatever charity event, right? In any vein, like you said, there are other charities you'd like to get behind as well. That's
Mhm.
awesome.
I just don't know if I could go every single month to do a charity event and have to sit for 12 hours every single event.
Yeah, right. I do remember you did it for 12 hours. I was like, man, I don't think I could sit down for 12 hours now. But
It's tough. It's tough.
yeah,
It's
especially
tough.
So myself, right? So I first, like you said, I started streaming in 2021, but that was like, it was just
It is, Mikey.
it. It's just one of those things where I streamed on the Xbox, so I didn't seriously start streaming until February. And I told myself, right, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons again. And I said,
Okay.
well, if I'm going to play DDO, I'm going to stream, right? Because I want to branch out and meet people in the DDO community and kind of get back into the game. And I think the best way in today's day and age would be through streaming. And I that was the single best decision I ever made, because I have met so many incredible people,
Mhm.
and I have done things that I probably wouldn't have done. You had mentioned Cozy Bean, right? So PAX East is hosted in Massachusetts, right? In Boston. And
Got
that's
to drive the car.
yeah, right. That's where I live. I don't know if you could tell from my watered down accent, but um I'd never gone, right? Even though it's, 15 miles away, I'd never gone. And Cozy Bean from streaming was like, you have to go. You absolutely have to go. And at first, I didn't want to, right? Because I'm typically shy when I meet people, right? And I'm apprehensive to go out and put myself out there and meet people that I don't know,
Hmm.
because I'm very reserved and quiet. And I'm like, you know what? I gotta go. Cozy's right. This is probably, even if I never go again, I have to take the opportunity to go. And I went, and
Hmm.
I tell you, it was awesome meeting people from that community. They were amazing. Cozy Bean, Nacho Wench, meeting. I met Strim Tom. I met Voodoo. I met Maverick the Gamer, and so many other countless people. And it was just, oh, I met a dude that I used to watch all the time stream Elder Scrolls Online and do YouTube content. And I was at the bar standing there, and he was there with his fiance. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute, are you Nephis? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I used to watch. It's so funny because I'm like, I used to watch you for like years when ESO content. He's like, oh, and it was just cool, like meeting them, and that was the whole thing behind streaming for me. Is I'm not using it as a source of income. It's just a chance or an opportunity to meet new people and get a open exchange of ideas and discuss something that we're passionate about, right? And meet some new people and have people to play with. Um,
Exactly. I mean, you can't go into streaming, saying what the whole entire mindset is, I want to make money, I want to make money, I want to make money. All right, because you're going to end up making yourself miserable, and people are going to go through and pick up on it. I mean, I go through around to a lot of different streamers, a lot of different genres and stuff like that, and you know, I'm constantly going through and giving as much support as I possibly can, whatever avenue that I choose to do for that day, you know. But every single penny that I go through, and I happen to go through and make, in streaming, goes right back into the community. All right, prime example is you, for a little while there, you and I were going back and forth. All right. I would come over to your stream and I'd give you 100 bits, and you come over to my stream and you give me 100 bits, and then I'd go back over to your stream and give you 100 bits. It was going back and forth. 100% of every single penny that I happen to make by streaming is going right back to the community, because it's about, to me, it's not about the money. It's about going through and building those relationships, building those communities, and having fun. I agree with you 100%.
yeah, to me, it's all about networking and branching out and meeting people. That even though we're from different walks of life, even though we may have different, religious or political opinions, we share one thing in common. We're passionate about video games. We're passionate about this particular video game, and it all.
Exactly, Mike. Expanding your fun.
I look at it like this. It always affords me the opportunity to see the world through a different lens that my
Hmm.
jaded eyes you know,
Hmm.
may not look upon something the same way. And the more people you meet, the more people you talk to and get their viewpoints, that you just become more and more enriched from that.
Yep,
And
I agree.
I appreciate everybody's time. Like, again, it goes back to what I was saying about the most precious commodity we all have is time. And these individuals, I appreciate everybody that comes in and engages or views,
Mhm.
because they're
Yep,
choosing to spend their precious commodity, their time,
exactly,
engaging and talking to you, and vice versa. It's a
exactly,
symbiotic relationship. And at the end of the day,
Exactly.
that's all I care about, right? Is we're all
Exactly.
having fun talking about something that we're passionate about. I
You
think
know,
that that's my biggest
exactly.
reward.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you're sitting there talking, one of the things that when I was just before I started going through and streaming, and I wanted to go through. Twitch is going to kill me because I've snoozed just about every single one.
Oh, good thing you said that. I'm terrible with that.
You know, so I did a lot of research, at the beginning about streaming and what I got to do. And one of the things that was stated over and over again by all the different places is continue to talk. I can't stand
Yeah.
talking to myself.
I,
That's one of my hardest things. So being able to have even one person come in into my chat and talk to me is I'm humbled, but two, I'm like so relieved because I actually have somebody to go through and talk to instead of sitting there talking to myself. I hate talking to myself. I don't like myself. I ain't gonna talk myself.
yeah. I'm terrible with that too. I'm like, oh, thank God, right? Because it helps me channel my thoughts. Um,
Yep,
I can't
exactly.
when I play games. That's why a lot of times if I don't have a lot of activity with chat or I'm not playing with somebody actively, is I'll play music in the background so it gives my viewers something to at least listen to because I have a tendency to not really talk too much. I have
Yeah.
been blessed though that since I've been streaming when we started playing DDO is I had like two or three people that I was playing with, and I would constantly have. Thanks, thanks, Trip. Appreciate you coming in, man. Great to see you again too. Thank you so much for dropping in. And I'll let Saj know that you said hello. So it helps. What I did was I would also include Discord, right? And that's risky because
Exactly.
you never know what they're gonna say. And I've had a couple people in the Discord that say some crazy things, and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm streaming, and I can get banned and deplatformed by what you're saying. So you kind of have to trust the people that are in your Discord, but it's also good too because
Yep.
the two guys I was playing DDO with, I've known them 18 years. So there was a lot of banter going back and forth. And again, too, that could be detrimental because the viewers may not find the banter enjoyable, but I thought we had pretty good chemistry. And that's important
Yeah.
too, is, if you have to make sure that the chemistry is right. There's some people that they can project through your stream. I don't want to say adversarial, but they can come off as like bossy or condescending, and
Hmm.
you kind of have to be cognizant of that because you don't want it to impact or impede the viewer experience as well, right? So there was a group that I was playing with when I first started streaming, and I'm like, this person's kind of annoying to me, and I can only imagine at what it's like for the viewer. So I had to kind of move away from playing and streaming with that person. It's just
Yeah.
because
It's a catch 22.
yeah, they were disruptive, right? And they had like a lot of background noise which would get projected through my Discord, and it was just like, man,
Hmm.
I don't want to be like that, but at the same time too, you have to cultivate the vibe and the experience for everyone. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
you shouldn't be inclusive because you should, but at the same time too, it's a fine line you walk, not only with what they're saying but kind of the mood or the vibe that's getting
Yeah.
conveyed
But I mean,
digitally.
just as to your point, though, is if you're sitting there and you're in Discord and somebody goes through and says something completely inappropriate, you know, you're the one, or we as streamers, we're the ones that can go through and get penalized.
Yeah,
All right, so yeah, I mean, it's a catch 22. You got to be careful. You got to be careful what's going on. So.
yeah, they even say it in their terms of service, right? You're responsible.
Mhm.
So but so far
Yeah.
it's been a great experience because it's allowed me to meet so many more people. And that's a catch 22. Like it's, for example, like DDO, I don't get into the voice comms and just chat and say hi. I mean, I, I will now and again, but the streaming has really helped me get out of my shell. Oh,
Hmm.
welcome in Ernia. I met Ernia at PAX too. Another
Yeah.
awesome DDO streamer. Like everybody was amazing. Like everything that you've been saying that got encapsulated meeting them in person. They all were just wonderful. It was crazy.
Right.
Um, so far my experience has been nothing but positive, no negatives at all, nothing. And I guess it's probably my perspective too. I'm not looking at it like, oh my god, I got to pay my electric bill, I got to have this, I got to have this fall. And
Hmm.
I appreciate every single person that comes in there. And again, it goes back to
Exactly.
that precious commodity. Like you're taking time out of your day to hang out with me and talk to me.
Yeah.
You
I'm
know,
humbled. I'm humbled
I
myself.
am. I'm humbled, and I really appreciate everybody's time, and I hope they appreciate mine too. And then globally together, it's just everybody have fun and have a good time and laugh.
Hmm.
So that's kind of all I'm looking for out of streaming, and whatever happens as a byproduct or passively, then it does, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. So,
So stating of gaming in 2024, and I don't mean any one genre. What do you think of it?
um, I mean, that's a very, very broad question. I can. There's a lot of potential. If they go through and focus on the consumer. Obviously, with the exponential um, the rise in the costs of getting things, of building things nowadays, they're 10 times more expensive than they were back in 2000. Um, with the advancement of technology, one, I don't know if the developers can keep up with the growth of technology, but there is definitely a bright horizon that's ahead of us as far as gaming as a whole, because just the advancement in technology. I mean, let's take Dungeons and Dragons Online for an example. I'm willing to bet probably within the next century, the next 10 years, whatever the case may be, that we're going to be able to go through and play a game similar to Dungeons and Dragons Online in virtual reality. To where we actually get to be the knight. Whatever the case may be. That takes me like to like the holodeck in Star Trek. Not saying that everybody's gonna have a holodeck at their house, but you know we're gonna be able to get more interactive, more immersive, more physical, so to speak, when it comes to that. There's a lot of advancements that's coming. It's just there's a lot of there's a lot of steps that still need to get there. So it's definitely got a bright future.
Yeah, I agree. So I think it's in a great state, probably the best state it's ever been. But at the same time, too, I don't want to say it's in the worst state it's ever been, but it's in a state that has me concerned. And I think what the biggest concerns for me are two actually. So for me, it's microtransactions
Yep.
and politics. Right? I don't want either of those in my leisure time. I don't need that in my entertainment. I get it in movies and TV, the news, bombarded with
Hmm.
everything, right? It's in all your
Hmm.
social media feeds. I don't need that in my video game as my outlet, right? I don't want politics. I don't care. And then microtransactions, like for example, if you take Battlefield and you take Call of Duty, I remember when those titles like Modern Warfare 2 or Battlefield 3, you just loaded in and you played a soldier, right? Now it's, oh, wait a minute, we have to have a hero or a character because now we can sell those as a microtransaction, right? A skin. Oh, I like the Sarge skin. He's got a cool outfit that I'm paying 20, like in Call of Duty's case, $20 for that skin. I get it, right? That's something that's voluntary, but that at the same time too, that's a huge. It's a huge marketing scheme on behalf of the developers. That's just like free money. That's like, I think Call of Duty last year made something over like $1 billion just in microtransactions alone, and that's all just
Right.
passive income that's free. That's not really bringing anything to the game. That's not any, new game design or new levels. That's just something that just pads their pockets, right?
Hmm.
And I think sometimes, a lot of times, it kind of detracts from the game. I know in Call of Duty, I don't want to see, and I'm going to use celebrity names, but I don't want to see Nicki Minaj in my Call of Duty game, right? I don't I don't need to see, the guy
But you,
from,
you don't want to go through and have the gun going "Brrrr,"
yeah, like shooting ice cream cones.
or
I
however she does it.
I don't need the guy from Scream. I don't need Freddy Krueger. I don't need Lilith from Diablo in my Call of Duty game. I get
Yeah.
why they do that, and I understand how it can become popular, but at the same time, too, there's something to be said, and this is going to harken back to a point that you brought up about um, legacy titles, right? There's something to be said about those older titles that just had an identity and they adhered to that identity, and that really gravitates with me. It's when you vary too much from these identities. In Call of Duty, they have like laser guns, or it shoots out gumballs, 64 pixel bullets. You're deviating too far from your identity to me,
Yeah.
and
No.
and that's why for me, I go back and play a lot of the older titles, because the newer titles are just, they've lost some of that identity to me. Um, I mean, I do understand why developers do that, but at the same time, too, but that's going to be up to the consumers to help rewrite that ship, right? People need to stop. They need to speak with their wallets. So I'm worried about gaming in the future and that aspect, that it's not necessarily so much about entertainment as they just see it as that revenue wheel. Um,
I get
there's
that.
there's been talk of the next Battlefield is going to have kind of like advertisements in game, like legit advertisements while you're playing the game, that you're going to get. We get enough advertisements. We get advertisements in Twitch. We get advertisements in YouTube. It's just too much. You're just constantly bombarded with everybody competing for your wallet, and that's what I like about the older games, is that didn't happen. They competed for your wallet by releasing an expansion, you know, and I'd like to see the gaming industry rewrite that ship and kind of come back to the center, where it's not just all about the money. And if you see, you talk about inflation, games have been $60 for Jesus, what, 25 years now, but now they're starting to creep, where you're seeing these huge 120, $130 bundles. Yeah, you don't need to buy it, but I did recently see a game that I do play that, I'm just going to call it out there. So DDO, right? Their newest expansion, you have your $40 price point. That gives you a race and it gives you access to the content. Well, there's other
Hmm.
aspects of the content that's locked behind a pay tier, right? So I'm interested in the archetype of the Chaos Mancer. That's locked behind the $80 entry price point. $80 just to get an extra class? I mean, Diablo 3 released a Necromancer and the class was $15, right? You're charging me
Right.
80? 80 is more than the price of a full-size game for an 18-year-old title. I don't know. For
Right.
me, it's hard for me to open up my wallet and spend that, right? And then you have like the $130 version. I get that developers, everything costs more nowadays, and people are probably being paid more money, so they probably have to increase prices. But at the same time, too, there's consumer expectations and what's been the industry standard. You still have games like Guild Wars 2. Their expansions, $25, and you get everything. Black Desert
Right.
Online, every class that they put out, it's free. It's absolutely free. So
Right.
I would like to see that course correct.
But to play devil's advocate here, yes, I completely agree that the microtransactions, or the gameplays, to be able to get to the full access to the class, utilizing your DDO example, um, to me, that I think that's hurtful. But again, it's these transactions, these microtransactions, that, in my opinion, are what is also keeping the game alive.
That that is fair. I will concede that, and I do know that. Hey, look, these are the price points. You don't have to get that stuff. You can buy things a la carte. I do get that, and I do get that if that was any other title, the game would have already been shut down and the doors would have been closed. Right? There's been other MMOs that's already happened to. WildStar Online, that thing came and went within a year. Was already shut down.
Mm-hmm.
I do get it. I guess it comes down to if it's the only game you play, then it's not that big of a deal. But when there's so many titles out there and everybody's
Yeah,
competing
I
for
get it.
your money that I just bought the
Yep.
World of Warcraft expansion. Diablo's got a $50 $40
Right.
expansion minimum. I just spent $60 on the Elder Scrolls Online expansion, but at the same time too, I mean, it is on me, right? I'm choosing to make these purchases, and
Right.
hobbies cost money. What's a new set of golf clubs, right? So I guess I
No
do
idea.
see,
I don't play. I've never played golf.
I do see your point there, but it's just I guess that's where you pick and choose as a consumer.
Yeah, that's true. Nope, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I agree, Ernia. So Ernia just said her dad lives on a fixed income. He's retired and plays DDO as a social aspect. He makes sure to put aside enough money to buy the biggest expansion each time, and that is fair too. Maybe again, and this is what I was talking about when I said the whole reason why streaming, right, is because I can see things from other viewpoints and other lenses. And you make a very, very valid point. And there I am speaking through my lens, but other people's lenses are going to different, and what is okay for me may not be okay for somebody else, and vice versa. So I learned too
Yeah.
from talking to all of you guys and having conversations like this, and I do
Yeah.
see your point.
Well, I also think that on the pay to play thing, I think in one thing that I will state that DDO does well, all right, is yes. Again, I'm playing devil's advocate here to your point. Yes, going through, I agree with you. Pay gating things is annoying, but at least you have some MMOs like Dungeons and Dragons Online to where at least even if you're free to play, 95% of it you can go through and get through in-game currency. All right, you're going to be able to unlock classes with DDO points that you earn from playing the game. So it may not be everything, all right, and it may not be exactly when you want it, but at least there's an alternative to being able to go through and get the items that you want. You have an option without actually having to go through and having to spend money. Perfect example is Deathy TV. Deathy TV went through and did a grind for about 2.5 weeks to go through. They came out with a chest not too long ago. All right, that had a lot of goodies and stuff like that, and it wasn't the VIP awards, and but it was something that you would go through and buy out. You could buy with cash, if you had the DDO points. But he's never been able to go through and afford one, so he went through and him and his friends went through and grinded for about a week and a half to 2 weeks to get over 5,000 DDO points to be able to buy the stuff, you know, through the store. So at least there's an avenue, that people can go through. There are games out there that, you know, like for example, World of Warcraft. The only way to get the stuff out of the DDO store, I mean, out of the World of Warcraft store, is to pay cash. There's no way in game to be able to go through. Thank you, Nacho. The coffer. Yeah, that's exactly right. There's no way in that game to be able to go through and have WoW points to buy stuff out of the store. You actually have to spend cash.
Yeah,
So
that's a
you
very
know,
fair point. And so there was a game called Terra Online, right? And there used to be like VIP tokens that would drop in game, and then people could turn around and sell them on the auction house, which I thought was
mm,
ingenious. I don't see why more games do that. Make it a rare drop, but the players would turn around and sell like 30 days of game time, like in DDO for example, you'd use a you know a VIP token that would drop in game that you could sell in the auction house for money, and then that would afford a free to play player, if they had the in game coin, they could buy their,
Mhm.
their
Just as Lily
subscription.
does,
Yep.
just as WoW does. Yep.
Yep. Their subscription through game, so something that's right. Because every time is money, right? So if I'm
Mhm.
spending, X amount of hours in the game, and I can buy my VIP subscription, whether it be out of my wallet or from playing the game, I think that's appealing too, because you're also giving back to your consumers, your player base, right?
Right.
Instead of just hitting them in their wallet. If they're populating your game world and they're making your game more alive, then what do you care if they're using in-game currency to buy a VIP subscription for 1 month, and you make them rare enough that your whole market now isn't you're not losing too many VIP subscriptions from real money.
Right.
That is true, Ernia. Backdoor access, absolutely. So I just have one more point, and then I'd actually like to maybe open it up to the viewers. Where would you like to see gaming go in the future besides virtual reality?
I got Nacho stated in Guild Wars 2. You can exchange currency from in game to paid and vice versa.
Yes, I like that. Like, bring down those firewalls, right? Let people kind of choose how they want to navigate and engage in your content with. A little more of that. That's where I'd like to see gaming in the future. My big thing, being a console slash PC player, is me personally, I would like to see more crossplay, right? In today's day and age, I think that crossplay shouldn't even be a factor. The consoles are just as powerful as some of the PCs out there, that I would love to
Mhm.
see developers kind of retool and focus maybe some of the older titles, or definitely some of the newer titles where everybody's playing together. Case in point, Elder Scrolls Online, right? So PlayStation has its own mega server, Xbox has its own mega server, and PC has its own mega server. You can't play across any of the platforms, which is
Mhm.
which is unfortunate, because I have friends that play Elder Scrolls Online on PC. I play it on Xbox, but I can't play with them because there's no crossplay. Now Diablo 4 launched, and they have full crossplay. I have friends that play Diablo 4 on PlayStation. I have friends like Workane TV, he plays on PC. Uh, BJack plays on PC, and I can interface with them seamlessly through crossplay. That's where I would like to see gaming go in the future.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, I definitely agree with that. I mean, with today's technology, they need to be able to figure out. I mean, there's got to be a way to most of the MMOs that I go through and play World of Warcraft and DDO and others, Guild Wars 2. There's so many different options. How are you going to go through and convert that into an 8 button controller?
It's
You know.
it's not as hard as you think, right? It's really not. Having played games like that, like Elder Scrolls Online on controller, I got on World of Warcraft the other day and hooked up my controller, and it runs great. It's just they need to retool some of the UI features and some of the buttons. Black Desert Online. So Black Desert Online, another crossplay. So PlayStation can play with Xbox seamlessly, but they can't play with PC. I wish that you could play with all hemispheres, but Black Desert Online is like a World of Warcraft, where you have like 24 skills that you have to rotate through,
Mhm.
and you can do that seamlessly with a controller on Xbox. You just like hold like
Mhm.
left bumper, right trigger, and then your X Y A B buttons, right bumper X Y A B triggers. It can be done.
Up,
It's
up,
just
down, down, left, right,
yeah, yeah,
A,
not
A,
that.
start.
The old cheats, yeah, not that, but it can be done with intelligent UI and controller key mapping design, hands down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to afford the opportunity. Anybody listening or tuning in would like to field any questions or have any focus points that we may have missed. If you guys want to type in chat, we'll answer those for you. We'll appreciate the engagement. If not, we'll probably be wrapping up here very shortly.
This has been a lot of fun, my friend. It
It
really
has,
has
man.
been.
It has, and the audience is, and the viewers have been. I shouldn't say audience. The viewers have been awesome. I've really loved the engagement. You guys are amazing. Great to see everybody in here. I really appreciate everybody's tuning in and everybody's time. So if anybody has any questions, a holodeck in your house, yeah,
I'd love to have one.
I'd love to have one too. I'd love to have. So my dream build would be VR in like a whole room, right? That would be amazing.
Well,
I don't think the
I,
technology's there yet for VR. I really don't. We're still, I would say we're probably
yeah,
still 10 years away.
you see those things all the time. You know, the little shorts on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. People playing VR and smashing into TVs and falling over, and yeah, that would be me if I had VR. So I would love to be able to have it. You know, I mean, the whole entire room would have to be padded, but I'd end up being a klutz. So no.
Yeah, the Boston Dynamics robot dogs, they're going to come and take over the world here soon. When Skynet gets activated in 2028, we're all in trouble. Absolutely. So I think we have an announcement. So episode 2, we're going to have a special guest, Nacho Wench. Nacho Wench, I am looking forward to having you on and getting your viewpoints on things. It's going to be great. We'll be reaching out to a bunch of fellow streamers, friends, and players to kind of get their viewpoints too. So be prepared for some DMs here. No,
Yeah.
no. So we're not being totally DDO centric. Obviously, a lot of us have met each other through DDO, but a lot of us who play DDO also play other games. So we also want different perspectives and viewpoints on gaming globally and other games as well. So we're not just hyper focusing on one title. We'll be discussing other games people play, other interests people have in the in their gaming hobbies and habits too. So the floor is kind of open. We don't want to just narrow in on one game. Saj, do you have anything?
No, I mean, I appreciate everybody coming in, and spending their time with us. I know that your time is valuable. Warhammer, again, thank you, brother. Thank you for doing this with me. Um, that's about all I got. Nacho, thank you very much. The next episode is July 17th.
Yep. So I just want to thank everybody for being in here again. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your engagement. Saj, thank you so much for asking me to do this with you and affording me the opportunity to, get to know you better and have these
Mhm.
candid, organic
I
conversations.
look forward to more.
I had a blast, absolute blast.
Yep.
The next episode we'll have Nacho Wench. We'll get her experience with streaming, gaming, some of her favorite titles. I know she plays Dungeons and Dragons Online. She also played Guild Wars 2. So I'm very, very
That's
excited
my game.
about July 17th and looking forward to hearing what Nacho has to say.
Brother, don't forget to raid.
Absolutely. You are absolutely correct. Let me see right
Let
now.
me go ahead and
Uh,
raid out here as well.
and I'm not rating you. So let me see
Right.
who's on here that we can raid.
Um,
We got Strim Tom with 61, Cozy Bean with 42, if Tough with 8 in the DDO genre. I am going to go ahead and raid Tough. I got a vote for Tough from Nacho.
okay.
So stand by. We are going to raid Tough RPG.
All right. Let me go ahead and I am going to raid out to. Let's go to.
Thanks again, everyone,
I'm going
for.
to send it over to Radar.
Okay, awesome. Thanks again, everyone.
Radar with 4.
I will see you guys all soon. Sarge, I will talk to you later, and thank you so much again, man.
All right. Thank you all. I appreciate you. You all take care. We'll see you.
See you guys.